Why shouldn't we listen to Donald Trump's vice
So ask the
president and
question a
chief of
different way,
staff?
then, Tim.
Why shouldn't we
You
listen
ask
to Mike?
them. I'm not here. I'm not here to answer for them. I'm here to answer for me.
Alarm you?
And I'm here to lay this out very simply.
You don't
very
feel
simply
at all
for the American
alarmed
people
that
and what the choices are.
Dan, you're not at all alarmed that the
only
last
thing that alarms me
administration
is your
ended with people
high-pitched,
storming the
shrieking
Capitol?
voice.
In today's video, Tim Miller absolutely humiliates Dan Crenshaw in a heated debate over his blind loyalty to Donald Trump. Now, we've seen Crenshaw try to play both sides, pretending to be a serious conservative while still bending the knee to MAGA every chance he gets. But Tim Miller isn't letting him get away with the usual GOP excuses. He calls out Crenshaw's pathetic Trump worship, his constant flip-flopping, and the fact that he's just another Republican too scared to stand up to the guy who tried to overthrow democracy. And let's be real, Crenshaw's attempts to defend Trump are beyond embarrassing. So let's dive in and watch how Tim Miller wipes the floor with Dan Crenshaw in this heated debate.
Let me.
Yeah, you know what happened. You know what happened after that? Because I was there. You know what happened after that? A few hours later, we did our jobs and we got back to business. You know what happened? A few weeks later, Donald Trump moved out of the White House without a word. He didn't move out of the White House.
Well, no, it's not true because for starters, you didn't go back.
Am I confused or are you confused?
Who's shrieking now? For starters, you didn't go back to business. There were votes to overturn the election, and as you said, your colleague Ted Cruz of Texas voted on the side of the rioters. And then Donald Trump didn't go to the inauguration for the first time in history. He went home like a petulant child. I want to read something that Dan Crenshaw wrote. Here's Dan.
Okay, so you're mad that he didn't go to the inauguration. That's what it is.
He didn't. We didn't have a peaceful transfer of power. He didn't. In every other transition before this, the outgoing president, their team invites the incoming team in.
Okay, so
this is what we do in a normal democracy.
So let me just get this straight. Because he didn't sit there in January and watch President Biden get inaugurated.
No, Dan. Because
that's not a peaceful transition of power. That is such an absurd statement to make. But go ahead.
Okay, Dan.
I'm glad you're reading quotes from my book. I appreciate it. Go ahead.
Dan, fine. Then that's not the sitting there that I care about. How about when he sat there off the Oval Office for hours watching TV while a mob of people carrying his flag attacked police officers and stormed the Capitol? The President of the United States was not on the side of the Capitol Police. He sat there and watched his DVR and he ate his well-done hamburgers and did nothing. He did nothing for the Capitol Police that stood there because he was rooting for them to lose. That is not a peaceful transfer of power. That is Donald Trump's behavior that is unacceptable. And honestly, if anybody else in American public life was running against him, I would be for them, including you, including Nikki Haley, who I voted for, including almost all of the elected Democrats.
All right, listen.
That was unacceptable behavior, Dan. That was unacceptable behavior.
Look,
do you think
many people would agree with? I thought that was unacceptable behavior, but let's move forward
to Congressman. Congressman, was that unacceptable behavior for you?
I don't need to answer these questions again. I did an entire podcast calling it what it was. I did. At the moment, I was calling it what it was.
I want to move anyway, Tim. I want to move to where we are.
Talk to somebody else if you want to get
Let's move to where we are.
I do not trust the Donald Trump administration that did child separations, that is going to have Stephen Miller in charge of the immigration regime.
Obama separated people, kids and families.
To do a mass deportation. And another good reason not to trust them is you're doing this performative thing where I'm a little bit upset about how Kamala's exaggerating on this or that. But like Donald Trump is making up just flat out lies, inhuman lies about people that are in this country illegally and planning to deport them, saying he will deport like the Haitian migrants who have legal status here in this country. He went on a national TV stage and said that they were stealing pets from their neighbors and eating them. Like, this is so mean and so inhumane. Think about
for the record, I thought that was completely wrong, and I think it backfired. It backfired hideously for him. But the bigger picture. Let me come to Dan.
How can you trust a person? Can I just say one last thing?
Yeah.
I just don't. How can you trust a person like this? How can you trust a person whose character is like this, who will lie, who will tell you that he won when he lost, who will tell you that people here legally are eating pet animals and stealing them, who will tell you that we're not helping people who are suffering from Hurricane Helene? Like, he is a bad person that lies and tells cruel and inhumane lies.
Let me go to Dan.
All the time. How do you defend that?
You know what else would be inhumane? You not hitting that subscribe button. So if you're enjoying this video so far, please consider hitting that like button and subscribe. It helps out the channel a lot. Now, Crenshaw tried to downplay January 6th, acting like Trump just quietly left office, but Tim shut that down. Trump didn't just leave. He refused to concede, spread election lies, and skipped the peaceful transfer of power for the first time in US history. That's not normal, and pretending it is just proves how deep the GOP is in Trump's grip. And let's not forget Trump's record. Under his presidency, the US national debt skyrocketed by nearly $7.8 trillion, despite his so-called business genius. Meanwhile, mass deportations and child separations became standard policy, and his trade war with China cost US taxpayers over $80 billion in tariffs. A total disaster.
The bad orange man argument. The bad
Dan, your response.
The bad orange man
Yeah,
argument.
Dan, he's bad. You know who said he was bad? You said that he was an insane idiot.
Let Dan answer.
In like literally 2015. So and he might have gotten the cats and dogs wrong, but you know what's not wrong? Lake and Riley. That's not a fake story. Okay, here in Houston, Jocelyn Nungri. That's not a fake story. These are people who shouldn't have gotten into the country in the first place and then committed horrible rapes and murders. There are tens of thousands of more crimes that have been committed. And people are understandably upset about those crimes. Why? Because you've already committed a crime before you committed that crime. You came in illegally, and you came in illegally because this administration undid every executive order that Trump had in place to try and fix the problem, and they created a massive, massive new problem. And you say we can't trust Trump? Like, well, again, that's an emotional argument, because all we have to do is look at the history of his policies, his executive orders. No, stop interrupting me. It is an emotional argument, because an objective argument would be, okay, what is somebody going to do? Well, they already had the job once. So I have a feeling that they're probably going to do the same policies that got the border under control the first time. And they're going to immediately re-implement those policies that got the border under control. How is that an emotional argument?
You're making an emotional argument.
That's an objective argument based on history. That's based on history.
You're saying I have a feeling. This is like saying, all right, man, I got hammered at the bar, and I drove 90 miles an hour down the highway, and I spun out, and we circled around, and I landed straight. And that means I should just get hammered and drive again, because last time we barely survived with only a little insurrection. We had a mild insurrection. Look, Dan, listen, character matters. You know that.
I'll help you out.
Dan, you wrote a whole book about this. Okay? Character matters. It does. In a leader, character matters. You cannot lie about people. You cannot advance racist lies. And you cannot tell people that our elections are fraudulent when they're real. You cannot tell people that they're eating pets, that the government doesn't care about you, that the country's going to end. All of these lies that he tells, that affects the country, man.
So your argument is that you do not like his character. Right? You've made that very clear. But again,
it's objective
the
point
choice
about
on
his
the ballot
about these lies. It's not about me.
That's fine, but then another objective point would be what our choice is in this election, and the choice is not a question, a yes or no question on whether you think Trump has a perfect character. That's not the question on the ballot. The question on the ballot is about who will do a better job running the country for the next 4 years. And this is a really interesting case where we actually have 4 years from each candidate, where we know exactly what their policies are going to be and what their outcomes are going to be. And on every metric, Trump wins on those metrics. You may still not like his character, and I'm not going to try and convince you to. But on the metrics, he wins on every single one.
That's not right, though.
Name one where he doesn't.
Right. The metrics only count for him if you stop the metrics before COVID happens, because COVID wasn't his fault. I actually agree with this. I don't blame Trump for COVID, but you can't say that all of the job loss that happened, the huge spike in crime that happened in 2020 while Trump was president, you cannot say that was not his fault because of COVID. But then everything that happened in 2021 the COVID had nothing to do with any of that. That's all Biden's policies. Look, we had this huge disruption that happened under Trump. And if you actually just look at the metrics,
of course I can.
You want to say metrics. If you look at just the metrics of crime and jobs, it's better under Biden. Sorry, that's just facts.
Now, Dan plays the tired orange man bad card, pretending any criticism of Trump was just emotional bias. But Tim wasn't buying it. He reminded Crenshaw that he himself used to criticize Trump until he caved and started defending him for political gain. And when Crenshaw claimed Trump wins on every metric, Tim hits him with cold, hard facts. Trump's economy only looked good if you ignore the part where unemployment skyrocketed to nearly 15% under his watch during COVID. And when crime surged in 2020, Trump took zero responsibility. Yet when crime fell under Biden, suddenly that's just luck. Dan's logic didn't add up. Then came the character argument. Crenshaw tried to downplay it, but Tim made it clear. Character does matter. Trump spent his presidency lying about everything. The election, immigration, COVID, his own record, and now he's back, pushing even more extreme policies, promising mass deportations, calling for political revenge, and even saying he'd be a dictator on day one. How does that sound like someone who should be running the country again? But this is it for today's video. If you have enjoyed, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comment section down below.